He is only the second president in history to lose re-election and then come back again. The last one to do it was Grover Cleveland. I pulled this. This, I believe, is a handkerchief,
Right.
and interestingly, it shows
That
one of
election was all
Cleveland's
about
top
tariffs. Yeah.
was all about tariffs, although Cleveland was on the opposite side of Trump
Yes.
on that issue. Um, but looking at history, what happened to he was running as a Democrat. What happened to the Democratic Party after Grover Cleveland won re-election after taking one term off, and what does it
Yeah.
portend, if anything, for a post-Trump GOP?
Well, that period at the end of the 19th century should be very interesting to us because it's the only other period in the history of the American party system where you had an extended back and forth between the parties in control of the presidency and of Congress. You had just about a 20-year period. We've already been through a longer one now, but about a 20-year period where everything was at stake in every election. Every election could go either way. And it's the only other time where we've had 3 presidential elections in which the incumbent loses, in a row.
Hmm.
So that the Democrats lost, the Republicans came in, they lost the next time, the Democrats then lost, Republicans came in. And it looked like this. The Democrats ended up responding to an election loss by running the same person again and winning. There are other similarities. That was also a period where American politics went through a real legitimacy crisis. A lot of elections were disputed. Elections were extremely close. There were 2 elections in that period in which the winner of the popular vote and the electoral vote were not the same, just as we've had 2 such elections in the 21st century. Intense disputes that ended up leading to the passage of the Electoral Count Act, which became a big issue, of course, in 2020. That was enacted after the 1876 election in that period. So that was a period that felt like a failure of the party system where you had 2 minority parties for an extended period of time. It ended with this return of the non-consecutive presidential terms of Grover Cleveland. It didn't end well for Grover Cleveland. So that period it was followed by a genuine transformational election in which William McKinley really created the new Republican coalition that then went on to dominate American politics until the New Deal, until the Great Depression ran. So
Hmm.
30 years of politics dominated by the opposite party is what followed. I don't think that means that that'll happen here necessarily. It would require the Democrats to respond to this moment by building a broad coalition. I don't think that would be easy for them. But it does suggest that the equilibrium of 50-50 need not be permanent, that it is possible after a long period in which we seem to be stuck at 50-50 for one of the parties to build a genuinely broad coalition in a new way. The Republicans in that period responded to demographic changes, responding to economic changes, technological changes by drawing together a group of urban workers and rural voters in a way that had not been done before. And I think it took a kind of political talent and imagination. That's the sort of thing it would require for us to break the 50-50 deadlock too.
You're on a libertarian podcast because we're like chomping at the bit to ask you about Grover Cleveland, right? Like we're so excited. But
Free trader.
you
Yeah, he
mentioned
was.
something that I think is really interesting, and it's been a huge thing that's discussed, I think, in a very stupid way, frankly, in American politics for the last 2 years, which is the sort of legitimacy crisis and commentary that happens when there's a mismatch between the Electoral College results and the popular vote results. To me, maybe this is because of a libertarian autistic brain tick or something, but it always strikes me as a little bit odd that people have such an issue with this because the Electoral College is the system that we have. And so, okay, popular vote results are interesting, sure,
Right.
but the Electoral College is the system that we go by. And so, therefore, that is the result that matters. But regardless of how I feel about it, there's clearly this sense of a legitimacy crisis that happens when there is a mismatch there. And it seems like, especially of late, I mean, we don't fully know the popular vote results from this past election, but at least, in 2020 and before, like, this is a thing that really rankles a lot of people. What do you am I convince me that the Electoral College popular vote mismatch really matters the way that people claim it does?
Well, I only think it matters because people think it matters, right? I certainly agree with you that ultimately the system we have is the Electoral College. That's how people run. That's how they campaign. That's how they
The
think about what
entire
voters they
strategy
need.
is crafted around this, right? Like,
Absolutely. If we had
campaigning
a
with
popular vote, so the closest thing we have to a national popular vote is the popular vote for the House of Representatives, which doesn't look like the presidential popular vote at all. Republicans have won the popular vote for the House. I think it's now 13 out of the last 15 times. That's not what the 21st century has looked like in terms of presidential elections because they run differently. I mean, it's just that simple. Elections are very close. They would still be close if they were popular vote elections, but they would be run differently and they would end differently. I think the popular vote result for president is simply an incidental byproduct of the actual election. And so I certainly don't think that it should matter. But look, people will say more people voted for the other guy. Why is this one becoming president? It's not impossible to understand. The mismatch only happens in close elections. And so what we're really saying when there's a mismatch is that the election was very, very close. And close elections are always a challenge for legitimacy. What happens in a very close election is really a test of our commitment to the law more than a test of public preferences. The result is tied. And so we just have to be committed to the process and say, however this ends, that person is going to have the power of elected office because this is how our system works, not because the public is enthusiastic to get him or her into office. That's a very hard thing to do. And as we saw in 2020, it's easy to start making legitimacy arguments. I would say both parties have done this in the 21st century. The result, after 2016, there were a lot of Democrats who said, actually, the Russians stole the election. This didn't really happen. After 2020, of course, the president himself said that the election result wasn't legitimate. I think we're avoiding that this time. I'm happy to see it. I think part of that is a gift given to us by the Electoral College, which is the result seems like a bigger win than it is. Trump will probably end up with about 49.9% of the vote. I think Harris will have about 48 point something. That's a very close election. It looks less close because of the Electoral College, and I think that's a good thing.
because Trump won all of the swing states and it was so decisive
That's
on the
right. Now, each
Electoral
of them
College
was close, right? So the
yeah.
overall national popular vote is very close. But yeah, because he won the swing states,
Well, so are we
looks less
coming
close.
out of this electoral results legitimacy crisis? I mean, obviously it's a little early to tell, but like, did we have turbulence that we in fact appear to have weathered?
Well, I think in this case, it does feel that way in this election. I don't think we've come out of the 50-50 moment in our politics. Again, a 49-48 election suggests we haven't, and it is very close. I think it would take a very small swing for things to go the other way. And so at this point, I would say we're still in a place where there's not a popular, a clear electoral majority coalition. But it does seem to me that there is a path for Republicans to follow that could help them get there. They've seen a kind of depolarization in some of the electorates they've been trying to reach for a long time. Some of that is a return to a pre-Obama norm. Republicans are very excited to win 42% of the Hispanic vote. They actually won 46% of the Hispanic vote in 2004. So, this is a return to a pre-Obama form of racial depolarization. I think they're rightly excited to get more black voters. That has not happened before, at least in modern times, and that's very important. But they need to find ways to win these new voters while keeping their old voters, and neither party has really managed to do that very well.
Hey, that was a clip from Just Asking Questions. You can watch another one here or the full episode here. And please subscribe to our brand new channel to get us started off right and be notified when new episodes or clips go up. Thanks for watching.